Good evening, fellas. Happy to see everybody again for another episode of the Blind Pig podcast, courtesy of bgobsession.com. If you're here, hook us up with a like, a share, and a follow. Share us on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, all of them. We appreciate the love. If you want to find us, you can find us on all major social media platforms. Obviously, if you're watching, you get us on YouTube. You can catch us on all audio platforms. And, of course, at the beginning of it all, the epicenter, bgobsession.com, one of the last remaining old school style message boards where we just like to get on there and just talk shit. So come on over and hang out.
Derek, are we old school or are we just old, man?
I was trying to help out. You're my boy.
Sorry, that's just me. That's me.
So, gentlemen, after we've had a week to digest things, because at one point we talked about live streaming after the game, and I'm sure there would have been some broken televisions and computers. Before we get into some of the day's events, I am curious because we haven't talked. What's your instant reaction? We don't have to go into details, but now that it's been a week, what's your reaction to the game against the Eagles? Paul, you're chomping at the bit, brother. I see it.
I'm going to be very honest with you guys. I still have not gotten over it. Still am very frustrated at the way that game played out. It was a very, very uncharacteristic game for our team, given the way that we played all season. We were very responsible with the football all year, and that game against Philadelphia was completely out of character. And in the biggest moments of the season, you are inches away from being in a Super Bowl. And it was just unfortunate for the team to play that way when we haven't done it all season long. I read a stat that we had 10 turnovers in 2 games against Philadelphia this season, which I believe tied our total on the season against all other opponents. So
wait, 2 games or 3 games?
Well, yeah, the December game and the playoff game. I don't know if we turned over the ball in the November game at Philadelphia. I don't think we did. But
how are they getting 10? We turned it over 5 times in Washington and 4 times.
Okay, so 9.
Count the intersection at the very end. Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it was just an uncharacteristic football game, right? For given the way we played all year. So yeah, that was a little disheartening to me, but next season is a new opportunity.
Yeah, I'm not going to use the phrase "found money" or whatever because I gag when I start to say that. But I do think we were kind of living in rarefied air, and I don't know about you guys, but really, we had such a great streak coming into the playoffs that when we hit the playoffs, I kept thinking to myself, we're going to have a game where the ball doesn't bounce our way, and where the kind of things that happen in just about every NFL game. Guys fumble, guys try to get an extra yard and get hit. Guys tip the ball, trying to make a dramatic catch, and it gets intercepted. We just hadn't had any of that for so long. And after a while, the more that happens, you almost hate it when the announcers talk about it, right? Like, oh, Washington hasn't fumbled the ball since. You hate it when they mention that because you're like, please God, don't talk about it. It's going to end at some point, and it just ended all at once. I think I'll just speak for all of Washington fandom. What would have happened or could have happened if we hadn't had those turnovers, which basically we flipped 21 points on the board, right? It doesn't mean we would have won without those turnovers, but God, wouldn't it have been fun to watch what might have happened because it felt like we were doing what we've done all year long. It felt like it was coming. I mean, I know you guys felt that. You're like, Jaden, it's coming, man. He's going to do it again. And then especially the I guess that last turnover, not the Jaden interception, but
the Eckler fumble.
The Eckler fumble, that was the one where I felt like it's not going to happen.
Yeah. I had a weird feeling Sunday morning when we got up. I mean, I picked us to win very publicly right here on this podcast. Somewhere on his desk there, Derek's got all our numbers. But I don't know what it was on Sunday. I mean, I paced. You should have seen me. I was pacing in my kitchen. I didn't even put the TV on the big screen or didn't even put the game on the big screen in the living room. I put it on the TV in the kitchen where I had plenty of room to pace, and I paced the entire game. I did not sit down for 3 hours watching that football game. And when it was over, I was a little heartbroken. And less than an hour later, I was probably fine for the most part. And the reality is that, and again, I won't use those terms either, John, because I don't like them. But this season was so magical, so out of the blue, so lightning bolt in a clear blue sky. I mean, we all knew. We knew. And I say that with a capital K. We knew going into the season that we weren't going to have a great season. We were just excited that we thought we had a quarterback, and we were excited to see the kid grow, and we were excited to see what this coaching staff could do with some veteran guys, and what maybe this team could look like with real NFL coaches instead of guys that should be coaching in college or even high school.
Yeah.
And it just I'm still walking around on the moon. I am absolutely floating, and people still stop me on the out in the stores and stuff here in Dallas and go, "Dude, you guys had an amazing season. I am so jealous."
Bob, I got to tell you this, man, and then I'll pipe down. I have a friend at work who he's a greeter at I work at a hospital on a stroke unit, and we're in a separate building, and I've been walking past this guy for 2 years. Hello, good morning, whatever. And then he found out I was a Washington fan this year. And then it progressed to like we both would wear our gear to work. We literally like hug every Tuesday morning when we come into work. It's like, I mean, it's
yeah.
I don't think in any other year, even if we had found out that we were a fellow Washington fans, it would have been like a fist bump or whatever. That's
right.
It. I mean, literally the last 7 or 8 weeks, it's been full on old white guy, big African American guy hugging in the lobby, and everyone just kind of looking at us, going like, "What the hell is going on?"
And I honestly, I think to this even now, my biggest disappointment is the fact that it had to be the fucking Eagles.
Yeah.
If it'd been any team, even the Cowboys, any team, but the fucking Eagles.
Yeah.
And it was only made worse by some of the comments that the Eagles players made after the game. They were all emotionally hyped up, but execution, we executed, and they did like, yeah, fuck you. And the horse you rode in on. I don't,
Yeah.
I'm a Kansas City fan this week, bitch. So get over it.
Yeah.
Sorry,
it takes a lot to turn me into a Kansas City fan.
I'm telling you, doesn't
Yeah.
it though? But here I am. Oh.
What do you got, Tony? Before I jump in here, go ahead, brother.
Say, man, yeah, just disappointed the way it happened and to the opponent that it was. But one thing, after I, was able to step back and look at it, is that was very encouraging was Jaden Daniels. Like the Eagles could not stop Jaden Daniels. It was Jaden Daniels' teammates fumbling that stopped him. Like every time he got the ball, yeah, I thought, okay, he literally just moved down the field. He was doing great, and then just someone would fumble, or McNichols didn't even give us a chance to get the ball and fumbled. So that was disappointing. And yeah, like Bob was saying, I just hate that it was the Eagles, especially the way their fans treated our fans that actually went to the game. Just the typical Eagle fans was annoying. But all in all, great season and everything. Just this game just didn't work out because we couldn't even get one turnover, and it just wasn't our day.
So, John, you said you were going to avoid house money. I'm not going to say house money.
I think you are. I think you are going to say it.
Instead, I'm going to equate it.
He's going to cough it
I'm
out.
sure brother Paul can understand what I'm trying to get at here, but we had a lot of puck luck. If you follow hockey, No, not just because he's Canadian. I know for a fact
Mm-hmm.
Paul follows hockey. Just like the Capitals did in their Stanley Cup run. If you get hot at the right time, it just seems like the bounces go your way. Pucks that normally go in hit a crossbar, and instead of it being a goal against you, it leads to a breakout. I saw a lot of that, and I felt a lot of that this year, and there was a lot of momentum as we got into the playoffs and through the first 2 games, where we were riding a level of momentum like we haven't seen, like beyond. I don't think anybody on this podcast would sit here and argue that we were the better team than the Eagles were. Let me say this: we were the better roster than the Eagles were on Sunday. But I think we were as good of a team with what we had and what we put on the field, and we finally ran up against a team that created opportunities and took advantage of it. Something that we had been able to do for how many weeks? But at the end of the day, this was a hell of a run, and we made it all the way to the NFC Championship. And no, I guess it wasn't house money. I think we actually did deserve to be there. It just was unexpected as all hell. So,
And
but
Derek, we did it by beating 2 really incredible teams
and on the
in their
road,
home in their home stadium, man. That is
including
that in and of itself is incredible.
Including a team that
Yeah.
a lot of people believe was the odds-on favorite to make it to the Super Bowl at a minimum. So I think we did deserve it. I'm not saying it's house money, but it was unexpected was the bigger thing. And it goes to show you that when you've got the guy under center, anything's possible. Like to think about the fact that if we could calculate and have like a time machine and on 3 possessions just go out and kneel the ball down and punt it away, and we are in that football game, that's crazy to think about. You know, they didn't beat us. There was some consternation on the board about they gave up an average of 278 yards on defense. 278 yards total was their season average, which is absolutely bananas. And we put up 350 after turning it over 3 times. I'm not going to sit here and completely blame it on the refs, but there were a lot of blown calls, and I think that has to be at least communicated. The fumble that McNichols did on the kickoff, we shouldn't have been on a kickoff because it should have been fourth and 20, and they're punting, and they should not have had a chance to score that touchdown. That's a 13-point swing right there, because they went down and scored that following one, and then Lattimore gets his helmet ripped off, and it's apparently his fault. So there's a lot of things that happened in that game that probably would lead us to at least believe that we could have won that game, and we did not just get beat by a better roster. So to that,
Derek, I don't know if any NFL people watch our podcast, but I will say that the fact that they let Sean Oculi lead that referee group with whether it's true or not, with the perception that he's a big
Right.
Philly fan and that he's not been fair in previous Eagles contests that he's refereed, that is unforgivable. And the NFL should, that just can't happen, man. Even from a Vegas, like, let's make sure this is on the up and up competition. You cannot have that. And that's all I have to say about that. I'm not saying that would drove any calls per se, but just the perception that it might have is so bad. I cannot believe they allowed that to happen. And I hope they do a better job of that in the future.
So I don't know, maybe this is sort of a segue, but this is something I brought up in our thread about the pod tonight. John had an idea about things to do because we didn't want to spend our whole evening rehashing the Philly game. None of us have blood pressure that'll handle that. We're all we're starting, some of us anyway, are starting to get up there in age, and our blood pressure is a consideration. So, but I said one of the things I wanted to talk about with this game was the call. And in my head now, it is the call. And that is the unsportsmanlike conduct call on Lattimore in the end zone, which the NFL then turned around and fined A.J. Brown over this last week with not a mention of Lattimore, which is as close to a league statement that Brown was wrong and Lattimore wasn't, and the flag went the wrong way,
Yeah.
as I think you will probably ever get from the NFL. For me, it is the most egregious call of the season. To kind of tie into John's theme for this evening, where we talk about the best, the worst, the whatever of various different topics. I was absolutely stunned that Brown could grab the face mask of another player, rip his helmet off, and not get flagged. I would have been okay if they'd thrown offsetting penalty, if they'd thrown flags on both guys. You know, I'd have been okay with that because Lattimore was definitely up in Brown's business. And I have no clue if maybe Lattimore said something that the refs felt like was egregious and caused it. But in the NFL, my entire life, the golden rule is you don't grab the other guy's face mask. Whether the play is going on or whether the ball is dead, you don't grab the face mask. That is just flat dangerous. Because now you're jerking somebody's head around with a lever. And the fact that there was no flag, I can't remember the last time I saw a guy grab somebody's face mask like that and rip a helmet off and there wasn't a flag. Shit, they usually go the other way. And I mean, we saw it in the Detroit game where it looked like there was a face mask from behind and they threw the flag assuming.
Yeah.
And there wasn't. Here, there's at least two refs staring at the confrontation and watched him do it. And I don't understand.
And Bob, we know officially not every play is reviewed, but you know damn well that every play is reviewed at some level. It just can't, that kind of thing can't happen. And
that was ridiculous.
I mean, that was a massive call.
Yeah. I mean,
especially when we had it work against us in mid-game this year, where they said overhead review from New York, blah, 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 whatever. And we're like, what the hell are you talking about?
Yeah.
I didn't even know that was a thing.
Yeah.
Like,
and it just, and to your point, John, this, if nothing else, I think, I mean, we've watched the NFL give out penalties for plays that didn't get flags before. So you're absolutely right. The NFL reviews every play of every game during the week. There is some type of a look-see at everything, but it just felt so egregious in the moment. I mean, they went on and scored. If that penalty goes against Philadelphia instead of for Philadelphia, they're back 15 yards. And that might be 7 points off the board, and we might get the football back. And, a lot of mites.
Bob, I got to touch on something. That was post-touchdown. And it
you're right.
was a half the distance penalty that allowed, and then it's ironic. It actually might have worked in our favor on some level because they, instead of then kicking the extra point, went for 2 and we stopped them. But,
You're right. I was just thinking about the proximity of the end zone, Derek. And then there was they were in the end zone. They were in the end zone or not in the end zone for 2. Got it. Yeah.
But
Fair.
the absolute basis of your point is 100% valid because it's, even if that play didn't matter, it's a defining piece of, it's a data point that something was tilted against us. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not, maybe not a conspiracy, but we weren't getting the calls that they were getting.
I would like to see the NFL come out with something. I haven't talked about English soccer in a while, so I'll bring it up. But the English soccer referees, they all grow up loving football teams. They don't know they're going to be referees. They grow up loving a local football team. And they have to declare an allegiance, right? To the reffing community. They have to declare an allegiance, and they can never be assigned a game with their team, and the reffing body that assigns them to games tries not to assign them to games that impact their team peripherally, right? So I mean, if there's a game where a particular outcome would cause their team that's not even playing to potentially win the championship, they wouldn't get assigned to that game. They work really hard to keep them out of a biased situation. I would love to see the NFL come out and say, we have talked to every single referee. We have set up a database with their, teams they're fans of, because they should be fans. They should be allowed to be fans of the game, right? But
well, the
they
minute
will
the
never
minute
work.
the minute the integrity of any sport is in question, that's a major problem. And
Yes.
the thing is, the NFL with
Yeah.
inviting in professional gambling, which they've kind of married themselves now to, it's 1,000 times more important that people believe that like the games are fairly refereed, and they just need to get a handle on that, man. It's unacceptable that there's banter, that there's even consideration that the referees aren't going to be fair. And we heard that before the game all week long. We heard it. That what about Sean Hoculi? What about this crew? And then what do you know? There's a bunch of questionable calls. So it just can't happen. And the NFL needs to get their shit together, to put it bluntly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, even talking about like the integrity of the game and everything, even like the stupid tush push rule, where I didn't even know it was a rule. They're like, if you try, you got to stop trying to stop it, or we're just going to give them points.
It's not even a rule. It's like I'm going to announce a threat to the opponent. I'm going to, like, no one's ever heard of the fucking rule before, but I'm going to pick this game in the NFC Championship to like lecture the opponent about over the intercom system about what they could do to them. I mean,
Stop trying to stop them. Just let them score. Or we're gonna give them points. I was like, come on.
Yeah, but to be fair, the Fox, whoever the rules guy is that Fox hired from the end of his Gene Steratore, I think is the guy that works for Fox. I get them confused because there's like 3 of them and they all work for different. But anyway, whoever it is that was the former referee that works for Fox had literally just said that look, there is a rule in the book. If you continue with unsportsmanlike conduct, and it's not specific to the tush push, it's just unsportsmanlike conduct. And if you continue in that position, if they have to call you for like, I don't know, was it 3 times in a row, that they can just award the touchdown and be done with it. I did find that interesting. And then I found it interesting that Hoculi made the announcement. I was like, that's kind of okay, but there you go. Anyway. All right,
gentlemen. Well, I guess we can run down a couple of these real quick to roundtable discussion. John, I'll tee you up because you were the one that threw it out there. You know what? Actually, we'll curve this. First, we probably should talk about today's event. And it's what prompted John's message under his name there.
Yes.
But
I am definitely yelling at clouds today.
Before I get into that, I will say, how enlightening was it that our owner sat down in front of the media the week after our season concluded and actually addressed the media, took questions, and had conversations, even if we didn't like the outcome of those conversations. I thought that was very cool. And unfortunately, it shouldn't be that exciting because it should be a standard. But it was good to see that change, for the first time, that our owner's actually making himself available to communicate with us and communicate with the media. So that being said, Josh Harris said today that the name is not changing. We will be the Commanders going forward. At least that was the biggest thing that he mentioned today. So,
I'm not sure anything he said other than that even got heard.
Yeah. I was gonna say, John, I'll give you the floor to air your grievances as we enter Festivus here.
Well, I'll keep it relatively brief for me, which that's a threat, not a promise. But
everybody, go get a beer now.
That's right. Here's the thing. I've said all along, I just want them to say what they're going to do. And he did say what they were going to do today. So I will give Harris credit for that. Although, Josh, John Keim gave you the opportunity to just fucking say it at the very first question of the press conference, and you still mealy-mouthed your ass through the question, didn't answer it. And it took another reporter, God bless whoever the fuck that was, to ask the question again in a format where he could only say yes or no. And Josh Harris finally said, no, we are not going to change the name. We're going to stick with Commanders. So thank fucking God for that, Josh. And here's the thing. I get it. There's a lot of different opinions. I guess the one thing I'll say is if you've been a fan for this team for the last 10 years, forget about the last 50 years, which describes some of us, you deserve, however you feel about the name, God bless you, you deserve to feel that way. There shouldn't be any fan-on-fan violence about your opinion about the name. And yes, I mean, it's a very emotional topic for a lot of fans. I just feel like, I guess here's the thing. I'll go back to something somebody posted today on BGO. They posted the survey results of a survey that the Washington Commanders front office commissioned, showing that 63% of fans don't like the name. They wanted it changed. That was the survey the team commissioned, and that was the result. 63% of fans don't like the name. If you don't want to change the name, that's fine. But, basically, it's kind of like, for lack of a more delicate way of saying it, you're asking fans to eat a shit sandwich for the second time in a row because the fans never wanted Commanders. There was no support for Commanders, but they shoved it down our throats the first time. And now Harris and his fellow partners in the ownership group are saying, you're going to have to suck it up and accept it anyway. Now, a lot of fans will say, that's fine. It's not about the name. It's about winning, et cetera, et cetera. There's a ton of arguments to be made. But the bottom line is the fans, the majority, not old fans, the fans don't like Commanders, but we're going with it anyway. So this is, I'm giving myself till midnight. I'll bitch and squawk and moan and piss, and then I'll be done. And I will get on board. Go fucking Commanders. That's me. I have Commanders gear. I wear Commanders gear. You know why? Because I love my football team. I've loved them since I was a kid. I loved them when I was in my 20s and my 30s and my 40s. And I'm going to be 63 in April. And you know what? I'll be a fucking Commanders fan. But I'm not happy about it. And I'll just say, the last thing I'll say is I'm disappointed in Josh Harris because he could have put this to bed 2 years ago. Fuck all of that. Oh, he was considering it. They just did a poll 6 months ago that said the fans don't want it. So don't tell me that they took the last 2 years to consider and weigh and research bullshit. They could have said right out of the gate, we're not changing it. And they didn't. So that's just where I'm at. I'm a little less of a Josh Harris fan today, but yes, you're right. If we win a Super Bowl, I will forgive. I'm not going to lie. And I am on board as of tomorrow because as my mother said many times to me, don't bite off your nose to spite your face.
So I think what's happening with John is you've now ripped off the Band-Aid and your arm is sore as hell because you've got no hair left in that spot, but the hair will eventually grow back and the pain will subside, right? Is that what you're trying to say, John?
Pretty much.
I honestly am with you. I didn't want Commanders. I never want, but I also didn't think it was ever going to actually change. And I think this run actually solidified it. You might not think he was considering it, but I bet you if we were 4-13, there's a good chance that that's a much stronger conversation on the table. To the point, and I don't think it can be overstated, Jayden Daniels' jersey was the number one selling jersey of any player for the entire season in the NFL. And I think it might have been across all major sports, but I'm not 100%. To that point, Josh Harris is now painted into a bad corner where if he changes the name, what's he going to do with all those fans that are pissed off that they went and spent $125, $130 on a Jaden Daniels jersey just for the name to change in 2 years? So I think there's a little bit of that. But I'm going to root for the team either way. I've come to that conclusion. So this is not shocking information to me. I was going to root for them. You know, it was never a tipping point. The name, as much as I didn't want it to be Commanders, it was never going to be. There's only a couple of them that they could have named it that would have caused me to decide that I'm not going to root for them. So I guess I just came to that conclusion months ago, and that's why today didn't really hurt me.
You know, for me, only one name was ever going to do, and that's the original name, right? That's the original name. I was born a Redskin fan. I will die a Redskin fan. It's just the way it is. But there was never any chance of me going somewhere else over a name. That wasn't possible, right? I wasn't a fan of Commanders. I'm still not a fan of Commanders. I will never be a fan of the Commanders name. However, I will now actually go buy gear that says Commanders on it. I have a couple of things that say Commanders via other means, people giving me stuff, but I have never actually spent my money on anything that says Commanders on it. I've got the W. You know, John sent me a hat one year, and I'm, you know, and I wear it, right? But I have never purchased anything of my own that says Commanders. Now I'll go do that because I know it's not going to change. Here was my thing, and this is still my thing, and I wish Josh Harris understood this because I don't think he does. Commanders is a very obvious, very forward reminder of the previous owner. I am not a person that typically wants history whitewashed. I don't like that idea. I think it's bad. However, in this particular case, I want every last trace of the former owner's fingerprints to disappear from my club. I want him to be a fucking footnote in the history of this club. I want his name to never be uttered by anyone ever again. I refuse to say it. I won't put it in writing, and I don't use it in conversation. He is just the former owner, and I wanted the name change. I wouldn't have cared if they'd called us the Washington Chihuahuas, right? I really wouldn't have cared. It would have been different. It would have been Harris's fingerprints on it, and I would have embraced it from the get-go because it wasn't the former owners. And that's the part of this that disappoints me, is that Harris doesn't seem to understand how badly we, the fans, need the former owner to disappear forever. And everything he ever touched needs to disappear forever. So there you go. Next.
Everyone is commenting on this. It's not an option not to comment.
Yeah, no sitting out, guys.
Tony, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, for me, I was over the name thing a while ago, you know, when it happened. And then also for me, I also associate Redskins with Dan Snyder too, and he ran our team to the ground. So I'm not so like, oh, it's just Commanders, Dan Snyder. And then one thing I look at too is now that we're finally good, it happens to be under this name. And I think one thing we all fall guilty of is just thinking that our perception of it is everyone's perception of it. But then if you look at fans who are like in their 30s and younger, all they know is the Redskins suck. That's all they know. All they know is they suck on the field. They're fucking embarrassing off the field. That's all they know. And so for them, now that we're good, it's with the Commanders. They buy the Jaden Daniels jersey. That's the positive vibes that they know. And no matter what the name was changed to, there's going to be some group of people that's upset. No matter what it was changed to, if it was changed to Wolves or Warriors or whatever the hell it was, any name you can pick, there'll be a group of people that are upset. So if So with me, I understand why he's not, or the Harris Group's not changing it now. The momentum's going forward well. And then even now, kind of like what John was saying, one thing that I don't like is like the fan police, fan on fan attacks. Like whatever you believe or how it feels to you is fair, and that's fine. That's how you feel about it. And however the next person feels about it is how they feel about it. You don't have to talk shit on that person and vice versa just because their thoughts don't align exactly with yours. So for me, I'm cool with it. And then in general, all are in the NFL across the board, names are kind of generic. It's, Titans, that's fucking generic, or it's like an animal. There's nothing there. That's just kind of how it is. It's not the XFL, where there's whacked out names. So for me, I'm glad the Band-Aid's ripped off. Hopefully other people are like John and like going forward, get it out your system.
No,
It doesn't have to be a talking.
Be like me tomorrow, not today.
Yeah.
Because today I showed my ass. Tomorrow
Yeah.
I'm good though.
Yeah.
Hey Tony, you're my hero, man. I just want you to know that. You're awesome.
No, I appreciate it. That's how I feel about it. And then also for me personally, I connected with my daughter a lot this year watching the games, and it happens to be as Commanders. That's all she knows the team as. And so I'm going forward with that. No one's coming to take away my old Redskins gear. No one's taking my old memories from when I was a child away.
In fact, they're kind of doing the opposite. The NFL.com's selling merch with the logo on it.
Yeah.
Again.
Like there's a new Sean Taylor line that they put out, and it's got the Redskins logo because that's the team he played for. So I think it's just what it is. But everything's not whitewashed or completely erased. But they're trying to find the best medium they can to move forward.
All right, Paul.
All right, brother Paul. You
Bring
want to
us
close
home,
us
man.
out on this topic?
Yeah, sure. And I'll try to make it very quick. So when we got our name stripped, I believe it was summer of 2020, if I'm correct. Whenever it was, the day we got that name stripped from us, I remember crying tears of pain. I was sobbing because my team was taken away. I was never someone who was connected to the city of Washington, obviously being a Canadian. For me, it was the Redskins that I was tied to as a kid. So that brought an enormous sense of pain to me, knowing that the team that I've cheered for 38 years was essentially stripped away from me. But this past season, I also cried tears of joy when Jaden Daniels threw a Hail Mary pass, when we upset the Lions, when we hit the game-winning field goal in the wild card game against Tampa Bay. I cried when we lost to the Eagles too. This season taught me a big lesson. It taught me the lesson that my passion for this team runs a lot deeper than the name. And whether we're the Redskins or the Commanders, we're always going to be the burgundy and gold to me. And I'm going to forever bleed those colors. So, it will never, ever go away, the pain of losing Redskins, but no one can ever take burgundy and gold away from me. So I'm going to leave it
Jesus,
at that.
Paul, I want to run through a wall for you, man. But
There you
before
go.
I do that, I want to make sure everyone knows that you can be the first to get your new Washington name change swag at www.notachancein hell.com. So get out there and get you some new name change gear. But that's a
All right.
perfect segue to
Yeah.
we talked about
Go ahead, brother.
doing some awards for the 2024 season. Let's screw the negativity, man. Let's get to some positive stuff. Let's talk about some of the great stuff that happened in 2024 and celebrate that, as Paul said.
All right, boys. Do we want to actually document this, or are we just going to go around the room and talk? We can just go around the room and talk. Best win of the year. What do you guys think? Are we going to debate, or do you just want to throw out what you got to say?
Oh, man.
I
We don't
think
have to debate. Go ahead, Paul.
I think it's pretty easy. Best win of the year to me, it's the Hail Mary game. It's the Bears game. I think that was the game that galvanized the city. I think that was the game that galvanized the team. And when you think of all the heartache and the pain and the suffering that we endured under the previous owner, I think that was the first inkling and the first clue that we were on the verge of something special this season. And all the magic that we found this season was it all spurred from that moment. So to me, it's an easy choice to say that it was the Bears game.
So here's the crazy thing, although I will talk about the Bears in another category. I wrote down 4 different games as the best one of the year. At the Cards, we kicked their ass 42-14 in Cliff Kingsbury's homecoming. Versus the Titans, we beat them 42-19 in December. Versus the Eagles, that 36-33 win with 5 turnovers, we overcame to win that game.
Yep.
I picked the Lions game, and because to me, the Lions game, that was the most shocking win of the year because we just kicked the living shit out of them, and they were the darlings. Yeah. They were the team that a lot of people had going to the Super Bowl and possibly winning the Super Bowl, and we kicked their ass in their home stadium, flat out dominated them. That's my vote.
I want to throw another one out there, and that's beating Cincinnati.
Bastard.
Yeah.
Well, because that was when Jaden really kind of burst onto the scene. And that was Cincinnati at the time was a struggling team that everybody believed was still going to make a serious run at it. You know, like people weren't looking at Cincinnati in that game as though we were supposed to be able to beat them. That was the game we were supposed to lose. And Jaden made some of the best throws he made all season in that football game. Bob, why was that your favorite or your best?
You know, there were so many monkeys going into that game, right? We're on the road. We're playing at night, national TV, you know, and we've just not been, whether the perception is real or not, there has been a perception that we are not a national TV team. We're not
even though we went undefeated on national TV this year.
I know this year, yes, but you know, well, and we've had some very memorable wins. I mean, hell, a Ron Rivera team beat an undefeated Philadelphia team on Monday Night Football with a backup quarterback. You know, come on,
Bob. That game, Jaden Daniels, the winning touchdown pass, had a 10.3% probability per next gen stats that pass to Terry to win to basically put the game out of reach. So that was a big one.
You know, I don't think we can overstate how big a game that was for Cincinnati. I mean, they were 0-2 going into that game, and the way that the national media was talking about it, it was their get right game.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? They were gonna get right. This was gonna set their season up. And the number of times I heard somebody say, you know, 0-3 teams have like a 3.8% chance of making the playoffs or whatever it was. I mean, there's this big fall off from 0-2 to 0-3 if you're going to make the playoffs. And everybody was talking like Cincinnati had to have that game and they were going to come out and just do their business. And Washington just really didn't have a chance. And here you've got a rookie quarterback looking at his offensive coordinator late in the fourth quarter, trying to get a win going, hey, coach, run this. And the coach went, fuck it, let's run that. And then they went out and all they did was execute, right? And it was just don't get me wrong. The Bears game for me
it wasn't just Jaden saying, coach, run this. It was Jaden saying, I've been seeing some things this game. And if I get this alignment, this is what I think we should do. So it wasn't just a, hey, let's take a shot at it. It was that was when we really saw the cerebral part of Jaden's game come out, which was awesome.
Yeah, and all of a sudden, you know, I mean, you got to remember, we got beat up. We didn't look great against Tampa Bay. We didn't look horrible, but we didn't look great. We looked very average. We didn't score a touchdown against the lowly New York Giants the week before that. We couldn't put it in the end zone. We won with 7 field goals. So then we come out and a
Malik Neighbors dropped sideline catch.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we very easily could have been 0-2 going into Cincinnati. So I don't know. It was the Cincinnati game was just really exciting for me. Although the Bears, Paul, definitely an incredibly close second.
Surprised
Tony?
nobody said the Atlanta game. Not that I'm going to elaborate on it, but just goes to show you how many great wins there were this year.
I know. How
yeah.
imagine asking this question like 5 years ago. It'd be like,
Five
We
years
got
ago,
like
last year, John.
we'd only have like 5 games to pick from.
it's like which
John,
of the 4
in
wins were the good
2023.
one? What's the best one? Huh?
Yeah.
In
Which of the 4 wins did you
2023,
win?
imagine asking this last year. Tony,
Yeah.
did you have a different one, or which one was your?
No, everybody said what I would have said the Bears game as my first choice, or the Bengals game. So
Right. I'm surprised, as old school fans as we are, nobody brought up beating Dallas to clinch the 6th seed to go into the playoffs.
Yeah.
like you said, there's so many. Could have picked the Falcons game too, or the Buccaneers in the playoffs to
Or
kickstart.
the Panthers game,
Yeah.
Jaden goes out on his first run, and all Mariota does is come in and put up 40. All right, worst loss of the year. If anybody says anything other than Philly in the playoffs, I don't know what to tell you.
I'm gonna say it was actually the Cowboys' loss because the
Yeah.
Cowboys were reeling, and we came into that game. We all felt like we could handle them, should handle them, and we
were in you control your own destiny mode at that point, right?
So this might be one where they were equally bad, but that was a bad one in the regular season.
We were
And
still
I
in the
thought-
discussion for the division title at that point, Derek.
Yep.
It wasn't just control your own destiny. We were in the discussion for as much as the 2nd seed in the NFC at that point.
That's what
Yeah,
I mean. Is we were looking at still winning the division at that point. Like
And in that game, that late Terry touchdown that was amazing. I thought, okay, we were going to win now.
That might be the
Yeah.
only game. I'm not kidding you. That might be the only game in 2024 that we lost that we shouldn't have.
Oh, I don't know about that. You can make the argument that we should have beaten Pittsburgh too.
Yeah.
I got that on the
referees
list
played a
too.
hand in that one.
Yeah, that was on November 10th, 27 and 28. Yep.
Yeah,
That made my list.
and the referees played a big part in that one too.
that 4th down call with Ertz.
That's a good call, Bob. That's an awesome call.
All right, best play of the year. Is anybody going to argue Paul's submission of the Hail Mary?
No.
No, that was.
I also
If-
had the Cincinnati pass in primetime on Monday Night Football.
Mhm.
And I think we have to mention the boink. The boink
Yeah,
play.
the rebound and in. Yeah, the bank shot.
beat the Bucs in the wild card game.
Yeah.
I mean, that's incredible. But
I think
I think
to Tony's point, if we finish that game against the Cowboys, the Terry McLaurin touchdown is probably the leader in the clubhouse, right? 30 seconds to go. Terry breaks inside, goes 75 for a touchdown with 30 seconds. Like, that was crazy. MVP. Is anybody going to say somebody other than Jaden Daniels?
Wait. Back up, because I want to throw one other thing in for the play of the year, because everything we mentioned was Jaden Daniels based. And I feel like the defense had a couple of things, but I would mention, I mean, if I were making like a top 5 for people to vote on,
the
Martin interception for a touchdown against Detroit, because that's the play that kind of blew the game open for us. And Quan showed a tremendous amount of resilience. I don't know how many times he got hit. He looked more like a running back than a safety on that play. And that was a galvanizing kind of a thing in the playoffs, where I just feel like the whole team exhaled at that point and went, we're going to crush these guys. And from then on, it was just all downhill. So there you go.
Yeah.
All right. I think we're all unanimous. Jaden Daniels MVP. Do we have a defensive MVP? Do we want to just throw a name out there? I mean, we had the 19th or 18th ranked defense, so it's not like it was that valuable. But at the same time, I guess Bobby Wagner, could he get some votes there? Or I think Jeremy Chin probably. Actually, you know what? Ignore me. Next category, offensive standout, non-quarterback flavor.
I mean, it's got to be Terry. I think
Terry.
just based on 82 receptions, almost 1,100 yards, 13 touchdowns. and I would throw out Austin Eckler. If Austin hadn't gotten knocked out with that concussion, I think he would be in the conversation. And then Zach Ertz, I thought, had a hell of a year.
I was going to say, I hope we talk about him. 66 reception, regular season, 66 receptions, 654 yards, an average of 9.9 with 7 touchdowns. I mean, he was
Yeah.
And then all he did in the playoff game against the Eagles was find a way to 11 catches at 104 yards.
Yeah, you could tell Jaden Daniels really trusts him. Like so many fourth downs he picked up in the red zone. Jaden always went to him. It was, yeah, it tipped my head to Ertz.
All right, defensive standout.
I think it's got to be either Wagner or Luvu for me.
Luvu. I like Luvu.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
I don't think the defense gets to where it went this year without the leadership of Bobby Wagner. He wasn't the greatest playmaker all the time. We usually had other guys making big plays. But I think Wagner's brain and his professionalism kind of permeated the entirety of the group and made them more than they should have been.
And as Paul puts it, I Luvu you, right?
Yeah, Frankie, I love you.
Special team standout. Anybody want to?
So we forgot about Austin Siebert, but Austin Siebert was 27-30 of 30 on field goals. The only field goals he missed, he missed 3 from 50 and beyond. He was 2 of 5 from 50 and beyond, but otherwise he was perfect. Zane Gonzalez came in, and we kind of, Zane Gonzalez played his ass off. Considering the situation he was in, but Austin Siebert, I think we just forget about him because he got hurt and he got replaced or whatever. But that would be my vote. I don't know.
I'm going Tyler Ott, baby, long snapper.
Oh yeah,
whose name you didn't hear the entire season.
Dark horse. I would bring up Luke McCaffrey. I mean, he was a little underwhelming as a receiver this year, but boy, once they started using him on kickoff returns after Eckler went down, he really kind of found a place. And you may have to mention all 3 of the punts that Tressway had to actually kick this year. He was perfect. He was brilliant, man. All 3 of those punts were textbook.
His passing skills were too.
Yeah.
All right.
Fun fact.
The joke.
Tressway has more passing yards in the NFC Championship than Dak Prescott and Tony Romo combined.
That's been the not so funny joke going around Dallas for the last week is that Washington's punter has more passing yards than Cowboy quarterback since Troy Aikman in the NFC.
Yeah.
Love it.
And I'm here for it.
Unsung hero. Anybody got a sleeper guy nobody's talking about?
I think Jeremy Chin is the unsung hero. The guy had 117 combined tackles, a forced fumble, 2 fumble recoveries, 2 sacks, 7 tackles for a loss, and 3 quarterback hits. And even though he did not have his best moments in the last game of the season, I feel like
half of his year was nuts.
I feel like that guy, and I know K-Dog, Corey talks a lot about Jeremy Chin, about how underappreciated he is, the contributions he makes. So that would be my vote.
Yeah, for me, I was going to go with Crowder / Zacchaeus. Like all year, they had clutch catches at big moments, sometimes to win the game too. Nothing flashy usually, but could come in as like the 3rd or 4th guy and make big plays when called upon.
I think.
Go ahead, Paul.
I think for a category like this, I think you have to go with some of the guys up front. And for me, the name that comes to mind is Tyler Biotish. The guy was just a rock in the center of our offensive line. I would not want to see where we would be this season without him. He was just a great free agency acquisition and gave us everything that we wanted and more. And he was just a huge part in in Jaden Daniels' success and our offense's success overall.
And to pick a guy on the opposite side of that line, I'd say probably Dorrance Armstrong. Armstrong just seemed to be around the ball a lot. He's not that offense wrecking, game wrecking, defensive end kind of a guy, but for whatever reason, when we needed a play, he seemed to be right there around the ball in some way, shape, or form a lot of the time. And I felt like he had a particularly good year on a line that didn't get a lot of hype for probably obvious reasons. So there you go. Especially when you consider that everybody comes in talking about our defensive tackles, not our ends. And I think Armstrong had the best sack numbers of any of the guys that plays with his hand in the dirt. So
the last thing to touch on, biggest surprise and the biggest disappointment of the season.
So I think the biggest surprise is not player related, or it's just a general statement, which was how healthy we were. I mean, we did have some injuries, Eckler, John Allen. We even JD, although that was kind of a minor thing, but just a general fact that I really think you have to look at strength and conditioning as the key factor in the fact that we were pretty healthy all year long. I mean, that wasn't a major deal, right? That we were just banged up. You rarely, I mean, it was just more of a nagging thing, which is kind of the NFL norm. We didn't have catastrophic injuries. So that would be the biggest surprise for me, because in all seriousness, the heat we've taken over the years with guys going down and that we're not ready to play and our players aren't durable, et cetera.
biggest disappointment is losing the NFC Championship game. Biggest surprise is being in a position to lose the NFC Championship game.
Yeah.
And I'm dead serious, right? I mean, I'm thoroughly disappointed that we lost it, but to me, it's still a huge surprise that we were there at all. So there you go. The same thing is both for me.
I don't think it was the biggest disappointment, and I don't think this player was the biggest disappointment on roster, but I think it's worth mentioning that Benjamin St. Juste was a big disappointment. Think about who we came into the season with at corner. Lattimore wasn't there. St. Ristil was a rookie. I don't know how much you're going to be counting on him right out of the gate in September.
And a slot rookie at that.
That's right. We had Michael Davis, who was, a guy brought in off the street.
Noah Igbenogany.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think to some extent and to some level, they were expecting something out of St. Juste. I don't think they were expecting the guy to be a world beater, but they were expecting something out of him, and he gave us absolutely nothing.
He finished the season playing special teams.
Yeah, the CFL is calling.
Yeah.
All right, gents.
Hey, Derek,
Well,
I just want to throw out there, and I have to admit, I was frantically trying to get control over my mouse during the podcast. I somehow I must have hit something on my laptop that locked my mouse my mouse out, and I could not. I mean, I'm like, how am I going to stop the podcast? I can't move my mouse at all. So I was trying to listen and be engaged while I was frantically trying to figure out how to end the podcast recording. But that's a long, wordy lead up to, did we mention Dante Fowler? Because I had him on my defensive standout list as right behind Luvu and Wagner. This guy had 10.5 sacks, which I think led the team. I think he led the team.
Yeah,
10.5 sacks, 39 combined tackles, 14 tackles for a loss, and 12 quarterback hits. So if he wasn't the defensive standout, he certainly was an unsung hero. So I just want to throw that out there because that guy played his ass off in 2024, way beyond, I think, what anyone expected. So I just thought that was worth mentioning.
Yeah.
And I have control.
Well, I guess You know what? I before we button it up, Myles Garrett and Cooper Kupp have both said. So Myles Garrett requested out. Cooper Kupp was told he was getting traded.
Yeah.
Defensive end and wide receiver are going to be two really hot button positions that we're looking at in this offseason. Yay or nay on either. Rumor is that people are saying, I shouldn't say rumor, it's not a rumor. Speculation is that the Garrett trade's probably going to be similar to the Khalil Mack trade, which was 2 firsts, a mid-round, and then a day 3 pick. Is Garrett worth that? He's 29, but knock on wood, he doesn't get hurt. He just plays. He also hits people in the head with helmets. So there's that.
I wouldn't
I
give
just
up
feel
2
like we're
first-round
too
picks.
far out. We're not. I feel like we're 3 drafts away from like really being like a team that other teams absolutely fear, and that we could win multiple Super Bowls. So I just don't know if we're in a position to throw 2 high round draft picks at a guy. I mean, he's certainly worth it. It's just more of a timing thing for me on him, but that's just me. What the hell do I know? Not that I wouldn't love to have him on our team.
If I could
Look,
get
I have
him,
always said, trust the process. I've always said, I know we're successful, but I hope that doesn't make us deviate from our plan.
if I could
But,
get him
man-
for this year's first-round pick, I'd probably do it. But if I have to give up 2 first-round picks, I mean, I did a rundown right after the Eagles game on our since 2020, which was Ron's first year. I did a rundown on players that were picked by the Eagles in the first 3 rounds that played in that game, and players that were picked by Washington in the first 3 rounds that played in that game. Half our guys were picked this year. They were they were rookies picked by Adams and Quinn this year. The Eagles had more guys, and they were spread out over all the years. I mean, there's just a talent difference there. And I don't want to give up 2 first-round picks for anybody that's pushing the wrong side, that's pushing 30. If I could get 6 years out of him, if I knew I could get 6 years out of him and he was going to play at a high level, sure, I might think about it then. But, how long is he going to play? Another
Even
3 years?
4 years, Bob. Yeah, I would challenge that. Even if you knew you could get 4 years of like top-notch performance.
Yeah, maybe. Or if I were in the position of being as solid as I think last year's Detroit Lions team was, and pass rush was the thing I was missing, then maybe I'd give up 2. But I feel like we got too many holes for that.
I mean, I don't know if it's 2 or whatever, but I would definitely be into it just because he's a game wrecker, and we're in that window where
That's the other thing to think about.
on his
Daniels
rookie
on a rookie
contract.
deal.
So
What do you mean by we're in that window, Tony? I'm curious.
we're in like that magic window where our elite quarterback is on his rookie deal, so you have more money to play with to fill in your roster. And I think he's a game wrecker. He also plays the run well. And then even if you look at Philly, as much as they have all those great draft picks, they also acquired AJ Brown. They acquired Saquon Barkley. So you got to have a mix.
And we got to the NFC Championship this year.
That's what I'm saying. We got to
right. I mean, maybe we're not as far off as I'm kind of painting it.
No, we may not be.
Like I said, I've always said trust the process. I've always said we can't. I hope we don't deviate too much, but I cannot deny what he brings and does to the defense. He makes your secondary better. He makes your interior line better. He makes the defensive end on the other side of the line better. There's only 3 of him in the game right now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Anytime they're on the field, they're going to impact the play. And there's only 1 of him. You've got him, you've got Micah, and then you could argue the Bosa brothers. Outside of that, game changers ain't just walking the street. But I can totally respect not wanting to give up multiple draft picks.
So just for grins, this year Garrett had 40 solo tackles, 14 sacks, 22 tackles for a loss, 1 pass defensed, 3 forced fumbles.
And I wish I could see how many quarterback pressures.
I could probably find that. I'm looking at ESPN, not not
PFF.
How many
whatever.
sacks was that, Bob?
14.
14.
So, and how many tackles?
40 solo, 7 assisted.
Yeah,
But it's that 22 tackles for a loss that kind of gets me, man. I mean,
Yeah, that's a lot.
he's throwing offensive linemen around, and he's playing from the
Yeah.
right side most of the time, isn't he? Right
So
side
that
of the
means
defense. So he's facing
36
premier
times this
left
year
tackles.
he tackled the ball carrier behind the line of scrimmage. 36.
Yeah.
I mean,
He's
hey,
a
does
badass.
anybody think Saquon breaks
Yes.
that off for 70 yards to open the game if he's running to Garrett's side of the
So is it fair to
Yeah.
say, let me ask this, is it fair to say none of us going to be mad if we sign him?
Exactly.
No.
I mean, I know the
No.
cost factors into it, but I mean, you got to pay to play, right? I mean, at some point, you don't get these difference makers without spending something, right? Something big. So I think that's where Tony was going with it, and I'm not sure he's wrong about that.
When was the last time he played?
Anybody
pro
want to
golf?
mention Cooper Cup? Anybody interested in trading for Cup? No? All right.
Now,
With that, all right, folks. Obviously, if you made it this far, please hook us up with a like, a share, and a follow. Any of that is appreciated. We're just doing this for fun, but it's great to be able to talk and communicate and interact with other people. And find
Hey,
us on
Derek.
YouTube, find us on all audio platforms, find us on all major socials, and of course, come and find us at bgobsession.com. What were you saying, John?
Left hand up, I guess.
No, I'll get out of here. I'll never do that. All right, boys. As always, I'll hit you with the tagline, John, to let them know that we're hanging out. That'll do, pigs. That'll do.